move on to verses 9 to 22, the rest of chapter 18. And I'm combining the stuff about prophets because it's all stuff, spiritual stuff that you're not allowed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually having a conversation in the Central Texas Torah group this morning about inherited pagan traditions, and people were asking about the Trinity. Is this one of those inherited paganism things? And I don't think it's important to really understand God's anatomy to be a believer. I mean, you trust God, you're faithful to him. You don't have to understand how God works. But I don't think, even if pagans had some idea of a multi-part individual deity, that doesn't mean that in itself is pagan. Because all pagan religion at some point goes back to an original true religion.
Yeah.
So it's just corrupted. So we have to be careful about not taking religious practices from pagans and do them to Yahweh because, well, pagans are doing it. So, I mean, it must be a good thing. They get great crops when they do this. So let's do that too. That's the wrong way to go about it. If it can be derived from scripture, or if it's something that we've inherited from, even from Jewish tradition, as long as it's not directly connected to some pagan thing, then it's either morally neutral or it could be a good thing. It's just like traditions shouldn't be just thrown out just because we don't understand them or can't figure out where they came from.
But if they go against scripture,
yes, if they go against scripture, we must throw them out.
That's right. You must.
Yeah.
Like saying don't go under a ladder because it gives you bad luck, or breaking a mirror. These are interpreting omens that are passed down that need to stop, you know, in most families, but we just grew up hearing these things.
Exactly.
There's a lot of things that are a gray area too, because there are things that God does that seem like superstition, like casting lots.
Yeah.
When they divided up the land, when they first moved into the land, God told them to divide it by lot. They were going to cast lots to see who got which territory. And that seems, like gambling to an extent. It's not really gambling.
It's like drawing straws. Right?
Yeah, it's like drawing straws. Mm-hmm. And whether God is actively intervening to make sure one person gets the straw they're supposed to get, or whether it's just a randomizer thing. I don't know. And they did this for choosing the 12th apostle too, the disciple. And that's another question. Were they right to do that or wrong to do that? I don't know. They had a better idea than I do. So, and I think we have to be careful about judging people on these cloudy edge cases where, I can't say for sure that that's pagan or not. And the obvious example for us would be things like Christmas and Easter. Some of it you can definitely trace to pagan practices, but a lot of it you can't. A lot of it is just lost in foggy history and nobody knows where it came from. But did it come from the Bible? I don't see it there. I don't see Christmas trees or Easter bunnies or any of that kind of stuff anywhere in the Bible or any hint of it. So, at least in my mind, the circumstantial evidence says that probably came from a pagan religion. We should probably stay away from that. Other people who are totally convinced that, well, the early church fathers came up with this idea of doing this thing because it illustrated this other concept about God. Well, I think that somebody just made that up. But I don't really know. So I'm not going to push too hard on people for that kind of stuff because it's just not for me to say.
What we do know is that it's become a substitute.
Yes.
Yeah,
and that is a bigger problem, I think.
Yeah.
Because people will say, well, we shouldn't do God's commanded holy days because that's Jewish stuff. But we should do these other holy days that some other random guy back in history just made up.
Yeah.
Like, why? I mean, God gave these. Wouldn't it be better to do those than the stuff some guy made up? We know that these other things aren't in Scripture.
And I think you get further with people, in my experience, in having the conversation about the value of the biblical holidays, rather than hanging out in the why you shouldn't do Christmas or Easter or whatever.
Yeah, because I think if you were, it's definitely a positive direction to be able to say, these have lots of significance, prophetic meaning, like all this stuff. And for somebody to get curious about it and start doing it, even if they're doing the other stuff, it's like eventually they'll probably realize, if they start looking into it and doing stuff, they'll probably realize, like, why are we doing this thing when we have all this other stuff that's so amazing and like Christmas really sucks because Christmas is like
in comparison,
and,
the meaning and the
so
depth of it.
commercialized, and like even if you try to emphasize, you know, Jesus and Christmas or whatever, like there's not any real connections. Like when you really think about it, it's like it's just a birthday. If it is, right, which I don't believe it is, but like it's just one of those things where it's like it just doesn't have the depth of meaning, and it seems like somebody who might be coming into the knowledge of the feast would eventually just get there. Like it just seems like a much better way to do that for some people. For other people, confronting that thing might be the way that they get there. Mm-hmm. I think that's why relationships are so important when we're sharing. The strength of the relationship's important. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear. You enter the land that God's given you. You're not to learn to do the abominations of those nations. Not one of you. Don't make your sons and daughters pass through your fire, all that stuff. And these are things like that are still happening today.
It doesn't just say, don't do these things, but whoever does these things is an abomination to Yahweh. Mm-hmm. So it's bad enough that you're doing something that's an abomination, but you're making yourself an abomination. And that sounds like a really bad place to be.
You know, and even today, I mean, it's the same thing, that we're set apart not to be worshiping God the way that pagans do. You know, we have His commandments, keep all of His commandments, and those are the things that set us apart. You know, and they're going into the land, but they're a nation like set apart from everyone else there. I mean, it's, you know, and we always see that they always keep getting drawn to those influences of the culture around us, just as we are today. You know?
Yep.
And so it's the commands over culture, you know, and that's why that's what we struggle with today, is because as we're following the commandments, it conflicts with the world around us. No matter what you do, you know, just keeping the Sabbath itself is such a conflict with how the world operates around us, you know. And because of our convictions and because of these very detailed things of being told not to do, the culture around us is still doing those things today. Yeah.
And I think it's a good reminder from the previous portion that, you know, God dispossessed this land not because Israel was amazing, but because He wanted to weed out the wickedness. And so for them to come and assimilate any semblance of what they were practicing was to be completely removed from them so that they would not carry that wickedness forward in this land. You know, so it's kind of like, don't forget who you are and what the purpose of this is. It's not just for you to be like, oh, sweet, we got, you know,
I'm driving
great
them
land
out because of their abominations.
Right. Well, it's interesting too, because like if we go back to like a few more of the portions, it's like it's building, right? Because we have the covenants and the reminder about the covenant, and it's like everything here is just based on that covenant. It's like it's one thing to say that you're going to keep the commandments over the culture, right? Like that's really important. But when you go back and you look at what the covenant says, if you do these things, I will bless you. If you do these things, this is what's going to happen. And it's like all the negative things that are going to happen. The hope is that like we're keeping these things in mind. Like, okay, like culture is asking me to do this, or culture is demanding or suggesting that I do this. People around me are suggesting that I do this. Am I going to keep the covenant, or am I going to do this stuff? You know, who am I?